Hello, everyone, and welcome to Best Damn Movie Critic in the Universe. I'm your host, Chris Lopresti, and thank you for watching. So let's start the show. Well, the first movie I have chosen to review is The Magnificent Seven, directed by Mr. Antoine Fuqua, who has also directed such films as Training Day and Tears of the Sun, Jarhead, and The Equalizer, another Denzel film. So let's get right into it. Now, like I said, it's a Western film, and it is set in 1879, and it follows the town of Rose Creek, and they are in trouble. They are being taken over. Their town is taken over by an industrialist named Bartholomew Bogue, and gold is found near the region, and he's polluting the water, and he's driving the townspeople out of their town. So basically, a girl named Emma Cullen, played by Haley Bennett, asks Chisholm, like I said, a warrant officer that is played by Mr. Denzel Washington, the main character of this film. And basically, she asks him to help them, gives them all they have. It is one of those tales of helping the needy. So he rounds up a group of 7 men, and they are Chris Pratt played. They're Chris Pratt, who plays Josh Faraday. And we have Ethan Hawke, who plays Goodnight Robichaux. His companion is Billy Rocks, played by Byung Hoon Lee. And also they pick up Jack Horn, who's played by Vincent D'Onofrio, and Vasquez, who is played by Manuel Garcia Rolfo, and finally the Native American, just to round it out, whose name is Red Harvest, played by Martin Sensmeyer. So, basically, let's go with the pros and cons of this movie. The pros of this movie: the most of the lead actors are very strong, very very strong. You have Denzel Washington, who is probably, in my opinion, one of the strongest actors in the business today. He can play a multitude of roles, and even though his personality is almost the same, every character is different in its own little way. And we have Chris Pratt, another strong leading role, who has the most underrated performance of the whole movie. He is the comic relief of the movie. Vasquez calls him a drunken Irish cowboy, and that's exactly what he is. He's a heavy drinker, he jokes a lot, but he can back it up with his guns, which he names Maria and, I believe, Isabel. So we also have Goodnight Robichaux, played by Ethan Hawke, like I said, and yes, another very, very strong role. He is a former Confederate sharpshooter, and he is he has some demons that add a little bit of drama, just a little bit though, to the storyline. And so we also, another pro of this movie, is the violence. It's the action. It's a Western movie, so we have gunslinging, we have draws, and we have good action scenes throughout the movie. There are areas where like maybe 10 minutes go by without someone getting shot, 10-15 minutes at the very most, and those are few and far between. So if you like action, even with some of its shortcomings, you will like this movie. And finally, I like how in all Antoine Fuqua films, there's a message. There's some sort of little message attached, and the same thing is done in this film. This film is warning you about big business, and as we know, big business can be destructive. We can look at the recession of 2008, and we can go as close as the Wells Fargo scandal, where they overlooked very blatant issues, where I don't want to get too into it, but where bankers were making false accounts and basically laundering money because they wouldn't splurge on a new security system, so people's identities got stolen, etc. And the same is true this with this movie. Bartholomew Bogue is an industrialist. He's big business, and he's polluting their water. He's trying to take their land by buying it for very cheap. And if they don't submit, he said he'll just kill them. So that is another good quality of this movie. Also, I forgot to mention Peter Sarsgaard. He played a very good villain as Bartholomew Bogue, a very emotionless, callous guy who, even at some point, while his men are fighting in the town, he doesn't mind killing them to get to win, which I won't spoil anything for you, but he does something pretty mean to his own men just to win, just to get a little advantage. But I loved how emotionless he was, and not emotionless in the bad way. You could see the darkness radiating off him, which I really liked. And he did some terrible things. He barely batted an eye, which I loved. You need to have a strong villain to get people to really hate the guy, to want the good guy to win. Now, some of the cons. The story is a bit flat, unfortunately, for several reasons. The story, it's a cookie cutter Western movie. I mean, I don't mind a good shoot 'em up Western like any of them, but for instance, The Hateful Eight had a very intricate storyline with cross-secting storylines from the Civil War and racism and all that. And this film didn't have it. It was in the perfect time to have it, but there was no like, just the storyline was so flat. There was no drama. Like there was a little bit of drama in certain parts, but those parts were very few and far between. Some in the beginning and then some at the end. Like in the middle, though, there wasn't any drama. Nothing. And to be honest, some of the supporting cast and even some of the main casts were just not even badly picked, but they just, they weren't that great. They weren't that great. Like, I mean, I like Jack Horn, who was played by Vincent D'Onofrio, but he really he has the same problem as everyone in the crew. Like you weren't emotionally invested in him. As the same with Billy Rocks, who was played by Byung Hun Lee. I mean, he was awesome. He was an Asian cowboy with knives and stuff, but you weren't emotionally invested in him. You didn't even know much about him. You got 1 minute of talk from Goodnight Robichaux, about his past, you know Vasquez, he was pretty funny, but like the same problem, and the same problem with Red Harvest. He barely talked throughout the whole movie, so he didn't know much. He said one little thing about his past. Not much emotional conflict there, to be honest. And my least favorite character was Haley Bennett, who played Emma Cullen. I mean, she was beautiful. Don't get me wrong, she was beautiful, but she had no emotion in a role that needed emotion. She was the girl who was pleading with Chisholm, Denzel Washington's character. She was pleading with him to like help him, and I kind of felt like she was his daughter asking if she could go out and stay out after 11. I mean, like she didn't have much emotion. And when some bad things happened to her, it looked like she scraped a knee when she was trying to cry, and I barely saw her cry too. And it's not because she was tough. It's because maybe she wasn't ready for a leading lady role. I mean, if you're gonna be the leading lady role, you have to have a little more emotion. You have to get people emotionally invested in you. I mean, you can't just be a pretty face, you know. So even with all the shortcomings, it was still a good movie, and I would give it a 3.5 out of 5. I mean, it's not gonna win any Academy Awards, but it's worth the $10 to go see it. So, like I said, it had some good qualities, it had some bad qualities, but overall, 3.5 out of 5, and I would see it if I were you. This is the best damn movie critic in the universe, signing off.